I started skateboarding and snowboarding at a really young age. I kind of was obsessed with the art behind it. To see the joy that my painting was bringing her, and she could see the wall from her bedroom window, she was just like so touched by it and was just like, do you know how much joy you're bringing me? She's been in that house for like 50 years and that wall was just white. All I really thought about was like, if you're a legit artist, you're in the galleries, you're using oil paint, you're painting like big, serious landscapes. But then I was like, why am I trying to be this painter that I'm not?
As much as you should live in your own passion and stay in your own lane, you also should define your own version of success.
You guys would not be talking to me right now. I'd be in some weird shack in the desert just painting some crazy stuff and I don't even know what. So.
Welcome to Brush and Banter, a podcast where creativity meets real-life hustle. Brought to you by Zibra, we go beyond perfect brushstrokes to explore the messy, magical, and meaningful side of being an artist.
I'm Bree Hansen, crafter at heart, creative cheerleader, and president of Zibra.
I'm Annie Bolding, muralist, designer, lover of all things that sparkle, and founder of It's a Disco Day Designs.
And I'm Lauren Cooper, muralist, designer, creative mama, and founder of Rosemont Lane Design Studio.
We're here to bring you conversations with working artists,
practical tips to grow your creative business,
and a built-in painting companion for your next project.
So grab your favorite Zebra brush,
pop in your headphones,
and let the banter begin.
Hey friends, and welcome back to Brush and Banter. I'm Lauren, and I'm here today with my co-host Bree.
Hi everyone. Today's convo is for the artists who have more than one creative lane. Maybe you're painting murals, selling originals, making products, designing for brands, or dreaming about getting your work onto something bigger than a canvas.
We're joined by Hannah Eddy, an artist and muralist based in Reno, Nevada. Hannah creates imaginative pop surrealist work filled with bold color, crisp lines, playful landscapes, and reoccurring characters that feel instantly recognizable.
Her lifelong love of snowboarding and skating has deeply influenced her art, and that creative world has led to her work with brands like Vans, Santa Cruz Skateboards, Hydro Flask, Patagonia, Lush, Skull Candy, Snowboards, and more.
What we love about Hannah's work is that it lives in a lot of places: murals, paintings, skateboards, like we just said, products, brand campaigns, but it still feels so like her. And so today we're going to talk about how those collaborations happen, how she decides what to say yes to, and how she manages a creative business with multiple revenue streams.
If you've ever wondered how artists get brand partnerships, how to build a body of work that companies actually recognize, or how to expand without losing your style, this episode is going to be a good one. Hannah, welcome to Brush and Banter.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Let's jump right in. Tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it kind of all started for me at a super young age. Like probably everyone who's been on this podcast says that they've been painting since they can remember, just a natural childhood evolution. But mine was a little unique in that I started skateboarding and snowboarding at a really young age. And I just became obsessed with like the graphics on the boards at the same time as I was learning how to do the tricks and like learning about the community and culture. I kind of was also obsessed with the art behind it. So that really fueled the beginning stages.
That's awesome. Obviously, your style is so recognizable, like the colors, the characters, which I'm obsessed with, the movement, and the outdoor influence. How did you develop that visual voice, and when did you feel like it truly became yours? Did those characters start when you were younger? I'm like so interested.
Yeah, a lot of the characters did start when I was younger, and I went through the drawing my own snowboard graphics and stuff like in my sketchbooks. I still have some from second grade when I was like drawing my own snowboard graphics. And then, the natural like copying a logo I really liked, that kind of stuff just started influencing in my sketching. And then kind of like, this lasted all the way through high school. I was still riding boards and drawing all the same sort of characters and stuff, and then went to college and studied art. Specifically, my emphasis was in oil painting, which is like kind of funny that that's the avenue I went. But I think at that time, all I really thought about was like, if you're a legit artist, you're in the galleries, you're using oil paint, you're painting like big serious landscapes, and that's kind of where I went with it, which it's funny looking back on, but I'm also glad I did, because I learned traditional color theory and how to like really work with paints and pigments and colors. But I thought I had to go in this more serious avenue that just didn't feel like me, which in turn wasn't a viable career path or successful because it didn't feel like me, which I wish maybe the teachers had told me to just do what is truly authentic to me, and maybe that's what would work in the long run. So I kind of, after school, I became a baker because it kind of worked well with snowboard schedules, and I could snowboard every afternoon, bake in the morning, that kind of stuff, and just side hustled art on the side, just always was painting and drawing still. But then I was like, why am I trying to be this painter that I'm not? So I started to care less about that. Once I was farther and farther away from school, I feel like I just started reverting back to the things I used to do when I was young, incorporating more characters and just being free and having fun with it. And that's when the side hustle stuff started picking up a little bit more, and I was seeing that those types of illustration-based, character-based things could work with the snowboard companies that I had some sponsors and stuff in snowboarding. Like, that was a pretty huge part of my life. So I knew those brands and was starting to see that type of art on the things I was wearing. And I was like, wait, if I did the stuff I used to do, maybe I could do a t-shirt for this snowboard company I ride for or whatever. So those things started just naturally flowing back to what I used to do.
So how did you get from there to murals, or to where you are today?
Honestly, I owe everything to the community of snowboarding and skateboarding, because I was working at this snowboard camp that in that time, that was like 2008, I started working there. And at that time, like, everyone in the industry would go. It was up at Mount Hood in Oregon because it's a glacier, so they have snow all summer. So everyone in the industry would go there. So I was just meeting all these people. I was a counselor, so I was like living with the kids and doing art activities after snowboarding with the kids and stuff. Like, that was kind of always a thing I did with the kids. And then brands would come and like sponsor. Maybe there's like a Burton Snowboards sponsors the art activity, and then I'm doing it, and then the team manager or art director from Burton is there. Like, it just naturally happened where I was meeting those people. And then, extremely long story, kind of long still, someone who used to be a pro snowboarder who would come through there got into murals. He got me my first mural festival invite, and that's kind of like what spawned it, really.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So is that how you've gotten to work with some of these big brands then? Really originated back at the mountain?
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, a lot of those brands I was working with, like, we're 21, 22, we're working together as counselors or coaches, but now they run the brands 5 years later. So now they hit me up to do a collection or whatever, and Dakine was the first. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they do like, now they do outerwear and stuff for snowboarding, but they were like a big backpack glove company in snowboarding. And I worked with Colleen at camp, and then she became the marketing director of Dakine. And that was kind of my first big collab with a brand. And then, so I owe a lot to the community that I like just authentically grew up in, which I feel really grateful for.
That's so cool that you had that iteration come back where you were to your authentic self, because it sounds like even as you tell the story, maybe you weren't even thinking about those conversations with a networking brain or like what's going to come out of this, but just truly like living in your moment and like what you love, and being yourself allowed you to get back to those roots and then expand from there. So that's really inspiring, because sometimes it is just like being at the right place at the right time because you're like living in your passion rather than having to overthink it or be calculating or manipulative really behind the scenes.
And I think that's always my biggest, like, if people reach out and they're like, how do I start working with brands? I'm in a really unique, and I feel really lucky to have been in this situation where I just have been really passionate about a few things my whole life and just stuck to it and didn't let too many things derail me. And then naturally, you just know people for so long, and then you just see how things just fall into place when you're like really authentically just trying to be intentional and live the way you want to live and do the things that make you happy. And kind of beyond that, it's almost like the rest is out of my hands has kind of been my, and I think I learned that from skateboarding and snowboarding at such a young age, where you're like, I can put 100% into this thing, but I might absolutely eat it tomorrow, even though I've landed this trick 10 times and break my collarbone and not be able to do it, but I'm gonna come back and do it because it's almost like you're just so obsessed with these things that nothing can really stop you. So that's kind of been my MO, really. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, just like get back up, keep going. I mean, to be honest, that was one of our questions before, like, how do you collaborate? But hearing your answer, I think the better way to pivot that question would be, like, do you have any knowledge based off of those collaborations on, like, what sets an artist apart to a collaborator? Like, is there anything that you feel like consistently they're looking for or that you can provide that they come back to you time and time again, or that builds the relationship even better?
Yeah, I think a consistent style is definitely like, I wouldn't be able to do the things I do without a consistent style, so that a brand, if they approach you, you're both already on the same page. Like, I'll get a rogue email that's like, hey, will you do a portrait of whatever on this thing? And I'm like, someone has not been looking at my art, I don't think. So it makes it a lot easier as the artist. Like, if you already know what you're putting out into the world, you know the things that come in where they're asking you to stick with that, then you know it's going to be like a smooth project and probably like a mutually beneficial situation. So I'd say consistent style is definitely helpful. And like, yeah, it's going to grow over the years. Mine has and always will. But I think you can tell when someone's authentic to what they're doing. And if they just keep doing that and like really hone in your style and be proud of it and have fun with it, I think that's what brands really like.
I have more questions about style, but like going into that, has there been one project that pushed your limitations that like changed something forever in how you do your work?
I mean, maybe murals, to be honest. Once I started working on that scale, has definitely twisted my brain for the better, I think, to be able to know if something's going to work across multiple platforms, because I think that's really hard too. Like, if all you do is draw on a piece of paper, you're going to have a hard time imagining what that would look like on a snowboard or, that type of thing. So I think working across scale, and like you're saying in the intro, it's funny to hear, like, because I'm so in it, I'm like, oh yeah, my art is on all sorts of things. And like, I don't really think that I approach them all so similarly. But once you work huge, I think that changes something in your brain of like the possibilities even of what your art could turn into.
Yeah, absolutely, it does.
It's back, and this time it's here to stay. The 1-inch angled brush is officially returning to the Zibra lineup for good. If you're not familiar, this brush made its debut in our collaboration kit with Marilena of Wallwear Inc. Murals. And ever since, it's been one of the most requested brushes we've ever made. The people have spoken, and we have heard you loud and clear. The 1-inch angled brush is coming back permanently. Stay tuned for the drop date at enjoyzebra.com.
So walk us through the process of what designing a collab looks like, because people may not, some people are very familiar with how a mural process goes from like the time they reach out to a client, but how does it work when you're designing a collab for a product?
It's pretty similar, the product to mural back and forth, but I mean, usually I feel lucky now. I work with a lot of reoccurring brands, so it's like a pretty easy, like, hey, we need another board for the next year's line. But I think the thing that maybe people don't quite understand is you're working like at least a year out on things that you're hoping people are gonna like in a year, and things change so fast of like what people are into. So that's kind of the hardest thing as an artist, is to be like, I'm really excited about doing these flowers growing out of snails right now, but am I gonna want that out there in 2 years? Or have I already moved on to the next thing that I'm excited about? So it's an interesting timeline, is really kind of crazy. But it all starts the same, like, here's the product that we wanted on. Here's our timeline, which if you're lucky, you have 6 to 8 weeks to do it. If you're unlucky, you have 2 weeks to do it. Or like sometimes it's fun to have a quick turnaround, because then the client only gets one review or one revision on the sketch.
They don't have
or
too much
whatever.
time to think about it.
Yeah, this is what you're getting. So, but yeah, so it's sketches, and then it's usually like I'll send a project agreement. That's what I've learned, obviously, over the many years of not doing the right contracts or project agreements and that kind of stuff. You just learn by doing the wrong thing. So I'll send a project agreement that really lays out like, okay, here's what you're getting. You're getting this many sketches. You're gonna have this many reviews on it. Then this is the project scope. This is what I'm gonna give you. Let's just sign this and just like make sure we're starting off on the right foot. That's key. Is we're both on the same page. If it's like I'm working on something right now and it's on a thing that I've never had art on or drawn on. A lot of times, like, I used to paint on skateboards and snowboards, so it was easier for me to imagine what that's like. But if it's a product that I haven't worked with before, it takes a little longer. Like I'll be like, hey, can you send it to me so I can look at it and like maybe have a piece of paper that's the same size as it and draw. It's helpful not just being on the iPad, just like imagining how big this thing is. So it's a really like tactile thing when you start working on products. And I think it's when it turns out the best, when you can like see how big your character is going to be on it. And sometimes you're like, oh, whoa, I need to change that scale so much. Like a mural, if you don't change the scale, then it's just not working. So I have found the easiest way for me to do it is like with Illustrator. If I'm vectoring all my drawings for a brand, it makes life so much easier. Sometimes I'll do some like hand-drawn elements, like on the last snowboard I just did, like the main graphic I drew and then vectored in Illustrator. And then I have these like watercolor elements on the board itself that I just like took a picture, like basically just scanned and used Photoshop to take the background out. But brands, and I think everybody these days like knows how to vector things, and I think there's ways to do it extremely easy now. But I do know that brands are always so happy if I have like all my files, all my layers labeled and like that type of stuff, because it goes a long way when they're trying to do a bunch of different things and they get one file that is like properly labeled and they can manage it and move stuff around. Like that's been huge.
Would you say that pricing wise, it's similar? If someone was wondering how to price a collab versus a mural, would you say that it would be similar, or are there other nuances you have to take into consideration?
I think it's pretty similar pricing the two. I always price my murals per square foot, which has its ups and downs. And then I have like a general, like basically that version for illustrations. But I work with so many like nonprofits and small brands that it changes so much based on the project, and I'll try to work it, if I'm doing something where I feel like I'm given a pretty good deal on it, I'll make sure that it's something I really want to draw, or it's something that I've painted that I'm like, I've been wanting to see this on something else, like really that's how I do the murals too. Like if I'm giving someone if I'm hooking somebody up, like I want it to be something that I'm really excited to do.
Right.
So mine varies so much project to project. But if I have to do like some social media posts or something, like now we're now we're into the territory that is not what I want to be doing. So there's gonna be some added situations on that. If I'm talking to the camera, we've got we've got issues.
You'll be paying.
You'll
Not
be
that
paying.
that ever really happens. Like I'll say something like that, like if we're gonna do a whole video on this, like I'd love like a per diem or something, and half the time it doesn't happen. But that's why I'm like, if I'm doing this, I want to be making the stuff I want to see in the world, that I'm excited to make when I wake up in the morning. It feels authentic to me because I'm really not in it for the business side. Like this is just what I want to be doing, and I want to do this for my whole entire life, and it's not sustainable for my brain to think about it like a full-on business. So I just have to kind of go with my gut, and I've learned over the years to do that, and it's not easy because things cost money.
Yeah. Well, especially I think when you're so passionate about it like you are, and you're doing something that you love, that it doesn't even feel like you should be like necessarily charging for it, but then it is your time and you do have to make money. So it's like, okay, I do have to have that business hat on because it is my life still. And so
Yeah.
that is
And I
important,
guess
but
I
it's also
feel
so cool that you are doing something that you just love so much. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
I know I have failed to mention that my husband, we've been married for 11 years and together for like 18. He has the business hat. He's a better wearer of the business hat. So without someone, I don't know what, you guys would not be talking to me right now. I'd be in some weird shack in the desert just painting some crazy stuff, and I don't even know what. So he definitely has been good, and he was a pro snowboarder for 20 years, so like he understands the like personal marketing and importance of taking your passion. If your passion is your job, like these are the types of things that are helpful to manage. So he's been really helpful in that. He's more type A brain and good with numbers, and yeah, so that's really
That's
helpful. Having someone to bounce this stuff off of is so key too.
That's the thing is like if you, I mean, obviously you're so talented and it's nice to be able to live in your passion and not also have to like expand yourself too much because that might like make you lose some of that secret sauce. But when it comes to like the reality of the business and all of the revenue streams, how much are you focusing on like what's next in the longevity and filling those buckets? Like, is it really intentional, or do you continue to lead with passion and purpose and kind of like plan out, just the next project to get to where you're trying to go?
I think there's been different times in my creative life where it's more planned out or it's less planned out. But I think the thing that I've found the most useful is being more intentional and planning in my life in order to set myself up to be able to be led by passion.
Mm.
So we just moved out of living in 300 square feet for a really long time. We've lived in our cab over camper truck. We've lived off the grid for 6 years. Like, I think we've set up a life of not needing a whole lot in order to be able to follow our passions. And that's something that Tim, my husband, had to do with his snowboarding too for so long, because you never know when the next thing is coming, but you don't want to have to sacrifice your passion for that. I think setting up a lifestyle where your overhead is not very high. Like, we live in Reno, Nevada. It's relatively affordable here. I have a great studio that is so much more affordable than like all my friends in LA, you know? So I've kind of chosen that path over having to be like, all right, we got to cover these high expenses. So what jobs do I need to do that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the nice thing that's inspiring is that there is money in art and there are a lot of people who respect that. But it's a good reminder that we've talked about before on the podcast, which is just like, as much as you should live in your own passion and stay in your own lane, you also should define your own version of success. So like whatever rich or happy is for you, like that's great. And you get to be in charge of that and then lead your work so you're not like over expanding yourself.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That's a really good point. My definition of success is so different than some of my other artist friends, and that's amazing. You know, we're all motivated by different things, and I just want to be able to make the stuff I want to make and do all these fun activities that I love to do. And, you know, if I could just maintain that, that's like really the goal for me. So, yeah, and that wouldn't work for other people, and that's fine. But I think that is important to define like what are you doing? Because it can feel really lost in space when you're just making this stuff. And, you know, if I'm doing it across all these platforms, then like, am I ever really doing my dream mural if I'm spending time doing this over here? But like, for me, that works. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of define your own version of success for sure.
I want to go back for a second because when you gave that example of when someone's reached out to you and said, "Can you paint the portrait of something?" I think a lot of times people do have a set artistic style, but someone may reach out with a project that doesn't align with their style, but they need to take it because they don't have any other jobs going on right now. How do you deal with, or how did you deal with that situation, or how do you deal with others that pop up where maybe you don't feel like it aligns with your style, but you do still need to take the job for work?
First, see if they're down for me to do something more along with my style. You know, like, put it out there and just be like, hey, that's not really something that I do or feel comfortable doing, but knowing your brand, you know, do a little bit of research and be like, hey, what if we did something like this? And that's usually how I would steer it. I mean, I definitely say no to a lot of stuff that's not along the lines
Yeah.
of what I want to do. I've also, back to like my own version of success, if I had to have a side gig job, I don't think that that's a bad, like, I'd rather work at the back at the bakery and do the stuff, make the art I want to make when it works. So I'm kind of in that camp of like, I'm not really sure what the point for me would be to make art that doesn't feel like the stuff I want to make just for the paycheck. So, but I'm sure there's been plenty of stuff that I've spun and done like a little bit different than I normally would, you know. If they want a really specific thing, like, I can't think of too much off the top of my head, but
Is there like a character that you have to create or something like that that you're like, I never imagined I was going to draw this, and I don't know with him, but
yeah, there's definitely been those. And like, I know that there's been so many, I'm sure. And like using colors that I'm like, this is way too saturated. Like, can we add more white to this? This is throwing me off, you know? But making sure that you find at least like there's something in it that feels like you is huge. Because then how is anyone going to ever know to hit you up to do a certain project if they can't tack down at all like what your art looks like? And I know it's a little bit different in the mural, like, if we're really just talking about murals, like, there's plenty of people who are amazingly successful at doing, like, what the client wants, and that's really
Right.
cool, but I think in if you are doing art across a lot of platforms, if you're just doing what the client wants, then you're kind of just a design agency, which is great too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
but if you wanna maintain that individual artist recognizable style, then you're gonna have to say no to a lot more jobs than someone who is a little more on the, like, design agency, like, let's just work with the client, which sometimes I think about and I'm like, "That would be so fun," and to not be signing everything, like, it'd be fun to make something
Right.
that's just completely not me at all, so I think that's a great avenue too, just personally, that hasn't been the path I've taken.
That's more my path, and so I'm so intrigued by someone who has a style. My follow-up question, especially about, like, the collaboration and pricing and everything, I know a little bit about art licensing, but when you have, like, a very specific individual style, is there an additive charge for, like, giving over that part of your, like, persona and brain? Because it's more than just, like, your art. It's, like, literally, like, you, right?
Yeah, definitely, great question. I think that is specifically why I have to be so selective in the projects that I work with.
Mm.
And I do so I'll have a flat fee usually for, like, the custom illustration, and
Mhm.
then I'll have another line that's licensing. So for me personally, I try to keep it just like a year license if I'm doing something for somebody, because
Mm.
that's enough for them to make the product, and maybe there's a line in there that says you can sell through all the stuff you make. But if you do another run outside of the licensing period, then you gotta at least talk to me so that
Mhm.
I know, like, all my little characters, I can kinda keep track of where they are because it could get out of hand and I could lose that sense of control over it.
What about, like, have you ever had a collaboration where they wanted to have, like, a non-compete? 'Cause I don't know, like, if you had, like, 2 brands that you were working with that maybe are similar.
There's definitely a lot of non-compete stuff in the world that I work in, and I love that personally because as, like, a part of this community, the last thing I would wanna do is do a snowboard graphic for 2 competing brands, and, like, I would never, like, ride for 2 companies, I would never do
Mm.
that, so I kind of approach it the same way, and personally, sometimes there's non-compete in the contract itself, but I still would even if there wasn't, I wouldn't want to have my stuff on multiple brands within the space, specifically of, like, snowboarding and skating, because you just lose the excitement behind it too, and, I mean, it's a fine line too of keeping it exclusive and, like, cool to have my art on something,
Mhm.
so I think that's part of why I also do a lot of gallery work, and I have times where I'm not doing really any brand collaborations. I'm just, like, in my studio painting for group shows or a solo show here and there because I understand the importance of, like, keeping it interesting and not flooding any sorta market either.
Yeah.
It's a super interesting and, like, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to be like, "This is what I do, this is my style, and I only do that." If you're if you wanna paint a bunch I see tons of my friends painting all sorts of murals, and I tend to maybe get only the specific ones.
Yeah. But it's important for people to hear that because I work all the time, like, I have some people who ghost paint with me, like, to help and assist, but, like, I know that, like, when they're doing their work, all they wanna do is their style, and I think I applaud that, like, it's so amazing, and I know that there's a lot of people listening to this who wanna stick to their style, and it's just inspiring to see someone who's made a career of it and is staying true to themselves and their passion, like, there's always gonna be those 2 sides of the artist, so it's important for people to hear that to get inspired, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's super cool what you do too, like, if you're enjoying it and you're finding like a reason to be doing it, then by all means, any job you can find so fulfilling. You can just put your heart and soul into working for someone else, and that's amazing. It's like finding those reasons to get out of bed in the morning and do the work, because we all got to find something.
Okay, so what is one thing that, or a couple tips that you would give artists that were looking to create a sustainable career with being the type of artist that you are, and want to stay true to their artistic identity and really create that brand for themselves?
Sharing the art that you want to be making, I think, is so important. And just putting the stuff out that if you were like, all right, I got my dream job, this is the type of thing I'd want to be doing. I think it's a challenge, because you might be like, oh, but then I just learned this other thing, or I got inspired to do this. But maybe do a lot of drawing on your own and then share the stuff that you really would want to be making a career out of, because people are going to hire you if they like it. And maybe you put out something that you're like, oh wait, I don't even know where I got that idea, like that doesn't really feel like me. And if you're sharing that type of stuff, it might catch on, and then next thing you know, 10 years down the road, you're like, who am I? Like, what am I even doing? So I think, yeah, draw a ton, come up with your style, like find the communities and the reasons that you make the stuff. I like to go out in nature. If I can't come up with something, go out in nature, connect again to the stuff that really matters, and just remind yourself that it's a long game, it's a really long game. And if you're making the things you want to make, then that can be successful. Like it's not always just about making the money doing it. But yeah, I think it's just like sharing the stuff that you really want to be putting out in the world. And I know that's getting harder to do because people aren't seeing it and the algorithm is just crazy. So it's a tricky, I think these days, like not relying too much on social media, like go to your local gallery. I think those are really important spaces for artists, and I think they're going to continue to be, like they ebb and flow with how successful they are or not. But there's show openings. I mean, I'm in a small city. There's art show openings all the time at different local small galleries or coffee shop. Like, meet the people, see what your local community is painting. What are they drawing? Is there like at the art store here, there's a weirdo art night on Friday night. Like, go draw with some friends, just
That sounds fun.
getting out there.
That's
Getting out there and connecting with people. And if you can like be sitting next to someone drawing, and then they ask you, oh, cool, what are you drawing? And you can explain like what it is and what it means to you, then that's something that should trigger being like, oh, this feels like me. If you can talk about your art, I think is really important. And if you can't, if you're just like, well, I don't know, I just drew it, like maybe that's not something that you could like really hang your hat on, or like, yeah. So community is huge.
Yeah, that's inspiring me. Giving me lots of ideas.
Nice.
Okay, well, our last segment before we wrap up is our golden moment. And that's just a moment in this past week that has brought you joy, or had a moment where you gave yourself a pat on the back. Has there been a moment this past week or two that's been golden?
I actually just yesterday finished a mural, and it was a just like private residential outdoor mural on this woman's like retaining wall. And it was the sweetest thing I've ever done. Literally just finished yesterday. We were like, it's a friend's mom, and I had never met her. And to see the joy that my painting was bringing her, and she could see the wall from her bedroom window. And in the morning, I wasn't even done with it yet. In the morning, I come back and she's like, Hannah, I just got to tell you, the orange bird smiled at me in the morning when I woke up. Like, she was just, like, so touched by it and was just like, "Do you know how much joy you're bringing me?" She's been in that house for, like, 50 years, and that wall was just white the whole time. And
Oh, that is the coolest thing.
it was the sweetest thing. I was just like, and I was kinda caught up in it. I was using spray for the first time in a while because I've been, for whatever reason, getting a lot of indoor murals lately. And so this was on, like, a brick wall turned concrete, like, pretty thick gaps between things, and I was like, "I'm just gonna spray this," and I think it'd been a while since I've gotten to spray a wall, and usually dream scenario, fill the colors with spray and then use a Zebra brush for the line work. But these cracks were pretty hefty, and I was like, "I'm just gonna go all spray." Yeah. And I was kinda in my head a little bit. My hand was so sore because I hadn't done it in a while. Yeah. And I was using, like, some older cans that I had, and that is not recommended. It get, like, so much harder. So I was kinda in my head a little bit, and then she comes out and she's just like, "Oh my gosh." She's just so happy, and I was like, "Oh yeah, duh." She doesn't care that I'm like, "This has to be perfect." She's just, like, getting the vibe of the colors and it was just flowers and birds is all she wanted. She didn't care how or what, but yeah, so it was just really special to just have those reminders, and getting to do a residential mural is really cool because it's so personal to them, and it's so, like, you get so much one-on-one of just, like, what it means to them, which is
that's awesome.
the best.
It's so nice to be fed back into, like, through that experience.
To what?
Like,
Sorry.
to get, like, fed back into through that experience, like, because it's not always a reciprocal experience,
Totally,
especially.
yeah, sometimes you're just up in a lift getting yelled at by people in the street. Saying they liked it better gray.
Yeah. You missed the spot. You're like,
yeah. What are you painting?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Are you painting that? I get that. Yeah. And you're like, no.
Like, am I? Who is this your dream? Or
But the murals are just the best. Like, having, like, no barrier to entry when people are just able to see it and communicate to you whether they like it or not. It's just such an interesting experience as an artist to be putting yourself out there on such a big scale and letting people say what they want. It's pretty cool.
That's so awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course.
Hannah, thank you so much for being here today. This conversation was such a good reminder that brand collabs don't happen because an artist becomes everything for everyone, but they happen when the work is strong, consistent, and really rooted in who you are. So thank you for that.
I really do feel like people are going to walk away from this feeling so secure in finding their own style, and just think more intentionally about where their work could live.
So before we wrap up, where can everyone find you and shop your work and follow along with what you're creating?
Well, thanks for having me. That was fun to talk about, and reflect on things is always important. It's easy to just get lost in my studio and forget why we're here doing it. You can follow me on Instagram at Hannah Eddy Art, and then I have sometimes merch and paintings on hannaheddyart.com, and I work with some galleries, ABV Gallery, Gallery Ergo. I think there's stuff available. Yeah, follow along on Instagram mostly is where I'll post stuff.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll make sure everything is linked. And as always, tag us at Zibra Painting and what you're creating. We love seeing what this community is up to.
And we'll be back soon with more brush and banter. Until then, keep creating, keep collaborating the messy middle, and don't cry over spilled paint.
Thank you for listening to the Brush and Banter podcast, brought to you by Zibra. We're so grateful you're a part of the creative community. Gearing up for your next project? Head to enjoyzebra.com to grab your new favorite brushes, designed for comfort, precision, and serious creative flow. Be sure to follow Zibra Painting on Instagram for painting tips, artist features, and more. If you enjoyed our banter, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and review. Now, go make something beautiful. We'll be here when you need a little banter.